Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience at the Saratoga Comicon and how that experience being a dealer in that show, how it relates to my experience as a sports cards dealer and just how the sports card market is, and the parallels there, because I think there's a lot of parallels there. Now, before I get into that, I want to just give a quick channel update and just talk a little bit about what's been going on. First, I want to say thank you to Carlos because I was on Because I'm Carlos Live a couple of days ago. And it was last Friday, I believe. And he was at the Toronto Fall Expo and was gracious enough to have me on his channel. And it was a great talk. And it was really interesting because he does, hockey and is in Canada. So two completely different areas of the market than I normally am in. Even though I do collect hockey cards on a small scale, it was a great conversation and just a lot of fun to hang out with some folks in the hobby and just talk about the hobby and cards. And for someone who's been in the game as long as I have, pretty much, we shared a lot of similar experiences, and I believe it was a lot of fun. So if you want to check out his live stream, Hobby Talk 110, that's the one I'm on, and I appreciate it. And I'm hopefully get his views up a little bit because unfortunately my curse is to have the lowest views for a lot of people who have me on live. Sorry about that, but hopefully we can get him a few more views if you guys want to go check it out. It was a good talk. It was a lot of fun. So I'm going to move on to kind of the topic at hand and Saratoga Comic Con. I'm going to divide this up into a few topics. One is just overall my experience at a Comic Con. This is my third year going to this Comic Con, and it's just an interesting experience for me. I don't want to talk, anything, negative about the promoters or the people. It's just, there's just certain things that we always could do a little better. It starts, with the fact that, I've been going for 3 years and there's usually 2 shows a year, and I go to both normally. And every year I have to remind them that I've A, gone to the show before, B, I've been a dealer like now 6 times, and that I have stuff worthy of setting up at a Comic-Con. So that's always a fun conversation to have that like 6 times in a row to convince them to give me a table. So that's the first thing. I just wish at some point I would get to the point where they would just understand that I'm a normal dealer. I've done it many times, and I have stuff that they generally are happy I bring with me and set up at a show because I usually have a pretty good selection of comic books, and I'm usually the only one bringing Golden Age books to shows like that. So that's one thing. 2 is, my tables were not reserved for me when I got there. One of my tables was occupied by someone else, and so we had to kind of remedy that kind of haphazardly. And I kind of felt bad for the dealer who had all of his stuff moved without his knowing about it. So I could have a table set up for me. And it was kind of a bad situation because we had to get our stuff unpacked and ready to go. And I didn't have time, to really think about it because, you have only a certain amount of time to get ready for shows like this. And the dealer wasn't there, and so they just moved all his stuff without him knowing it, and I felt pretty bad about it, but I also needed to get my stuff unpacked and loaded, so it was not a great situation. And of course, the dealer came and was upset, and so it was just not a great vibe to start the show. So that was, another thing. As far as the Comic-Con itself, again, it's been like 3 years I've been setting up the show, minus the COVID time gap. And in general, again, I talk about I'm usually the only one bringing Golden Age books to the show. And I have a very unique specialty in the area. So a lot of folks are doing, they bring in books that are for people filling out, checklist. Some people bring in, half price books, just blowing out some books, at a discount. Some people bring in really high grade comics. There was one really cool dealer that I met that was doing that. And so it was a good mix. There was more comic dealers this time than I remember in terms of just having good content. And I think that's great because, again, it's not, I'm not going to sit there and say like, well, I don't want anyone to show up because I can capture all the dollars. Because to me, that's a bad show for everyone else, in terms of, because I can't bring every book everyone wants. I don't have that inventory. So it's bad for the people to walk around and not find the books they want if I don't have it. So I think it's great that we have some dealers who are bringing different stuff than I have. Now, to get ready for the show, I priced comic books for 2 weeks. And this is what's going to lead me into the comparisons to sports cards. So for 2 weeks, I priced comic books, everything from the most recent New York City Comicon variants all the way down to 1930s Golden Age comic books. And, well over 1,000 comic books in total. I redid pricing from May when I last set up at a Comicon. And so for 6 months, gap in time, I repriced my entire inventory basically. And I would estimate that about 80% of my books have gone down in value since May. And about 20% have either held steady or gone up. Now, that sounds really bad, but I will say this, is that the books that went down make sense. Like it's books like Thor, which had a big run up until the movie. And then the movie was kind of a dud. And then the books, went down. And so that happened. And then there was, speculation on the Black Panther movie that's kind of gone up and down. So, those things make sense. So I'm not really shocked that a lot of Venom and Thor books have gone down since the run up to those speculation movies. And now with Deadpool coming out with Wolverine in it, it's a ton of interest in Wolverine books. So at the show, I sold a lot of Wolverine. I sold a lot of Miles and a lot of Spider-Gwen, a lot of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and then I sold some Silver Age keys. I sold a lot of Silver Surfer 3, Silver Surfer 4 in general for the bigger books. So yeah, it was a lot of those kind of books. So Silver Age keys were very popular, like always. Now, this was the first show out of 6 I did not sell an Amazing Spider-Man 300. I usually sell one a show. And so that's why I'm bringing my kind of a back into the card market, is that some things just have gotten to the point where there's some oversaturation. And even if a book or card is popular, you can get to a point where everyone has one. And I think that's somewhat true with like ASM 300, that everyone who wants one has one. There's so many of them in the market that the pricing just is really stagnant or going down. And that happens in both cards and comics. So I do think the two markets run together. I think, if I looked at my sports card collection, you'll find that majority of my newer stuff has probably gone down a little bit. But some things, just like in comic books, like my King Griffey Jr. cards are either holding steady or have gone up some since May. While, a lot of the newer stuff, like like the Tom Brady's, cards like that have gone down. A lot of the rookies, stuff I have has gone up and down. Most of it's down. So like my Josh Allen's peaked a little bit, and now they're kind of, had a bad game, so they're kind of wavering a little bit. And so it's just day to day, on football. Baseball, the vintage stuff is strong. Just like with Golden Age comic books, a lot of it's holding steady or gone up. So, it's a mixed bag, and that's the same way with comics. Comics are like, hey, a lot of stuff is strong, you could just pick it out. You could say a lot of Silver Age keys are still okay. Maybe they're down from where the high, but people still want them, so they're still buying them. They're still moving. That's good. But some things, I sold tons of variants at the show. And again, this is where I talk a lot about people, being down on variants, but I sell a lot of them. And that's, what I kind of specialize in a little bit. And I think that did me well on this show. And I'll give you an example. So, and I think this is very important and also a parallel to sports cards. That, the $20 to $25, I'd say $15 to $25 variant comic of a cool cover with a character that people love was selling really well. I sold out of a lot of comic variants I had. I had multiples of some books I thought were strong, hip-hop variants, Raza variants, the Iron Man 12, especially the Raza Spider-Man. I sold every one I had. And it just shows you, if it's a cool cover, cool character, $15 to $25, people just buy them. They're not expensive to that level where people have to think they're killing themselves to pay for it, but it's a cool looking book, and it's something that maybe they didn't get because you can't get those books on at your comic book store. You have to order them. You have to plan ahead to try to get them, and a lot of people just don't do that, and so they see them at a con. They're like, hey, that's a cool book. It's $20. I'll pick it up. And I was making good money. I did not discount those books at all. Did not discount those books at all. And so that is interesting that, those books sold for basically what they were going for on eBay. And I had very few people ask for discounts on those books. They just saw them, they liked them, they bought them. That was easy. Back issue guys, they always ask for discounts. So I knew as soon as back issue people were walking through there, they, because they're looking for back issues. They're not really investing. They're just wanting to get as many books as possible, as cheaply as possible to complete their collection. So that makes sense. So you kind of got to know who's buying for what, and how that works, in terms of what the collector really is doing. Are they buying to fill out their collection? And so if that's the case, they're going to want to get books as cheaply as possible. If someone's just buying a book because it's cool and they're just a collector of the character, a lot of times they don't really care about discount. They're just kind of want to pick up a cool book of this guy and move on. So that is, and I think that's a really different thing than sports cards. Sports cards, I would say that I've never had anyone look at my sticker prices and be like, I'll pay that, unless I'm really underpriced, then maybe that'll happen. But there's a lot more haggling at a sports card show than there is at a Comicon. I mean, most deals at Comicons, either they pay the sticker price, or you throw out your first, like, hey, it's $45, you take 40, and it's like, yep, okay, or I'll do 42. It's like it's literally one throw out, and everyone's okay. There isn't a lot of haggling, and that's the one thing I kind of enjoyed is a lot of people paid the sticker price, or they came down, just a few dollars, and you were okay, and you were making sales. So the next part I want to talk about is cards. I brought a lot of comic book cards to the show. And so the last time I came to one of these shows was May. And there was, let's say, no interest in comic book cards in May, which was not really the dead zone for cards, but it was getting, kind of overhyped and was starting to really I think that's when things started to really kind of peak and go down. But no one was interested in cards. I sold one comic book card at the entire show, and it was for $15 because I remember what it was. So that was, interesting. And so now, at this show, I was able to, sell about $240 worth of comic book cards, which doesn't seem like much. It was less than, it was basically 5% of my entire sales was comic book cards. So definitely not a major part of my inventory or sales, but still $240 at a show. That's about what a table cost. So you could say that one day's table was paid for by my comic book cards. And in general, that's not bad. And so I would take that. If I could sell $200 to $300 every Comicon of just cards, which I have plenty of that I want to sell because I'm not a hardcore Marvel card collector. I'm more of a DC card collector that, outside of a few characters that, it's great. It's a way for me to move some inventory and pay for my, my entry fees, to the show. So that's great. So that was good. That was and it was a wide diversity, of characters and cards. I sold a Star Wars autograph, a trying to think of the character, but one of the autographs from Star Wars. I can try to remember the name of it, but and then I sold a couple of sketch cards. I sold a PMG. So it was good. I sold some cards, and so that was great. Now, a lot of people, didn't know what they were. I'd say still to this day, in Marvel card market or just sports or comic card market is just people just don't know what the sets are. They don't know how to value anything. It was just very interesting. Like, what's a sketch card? Like, how does it work? Who does the sketches? It's just a lot of people asking a lot of questions about sketch cards and about just the cards in general. So that was very interesting. That there was a lot of people who just didn't know what cards were, and what the sets were, and how to value the cards and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was very interesting. Now, day 2, I severely restricted my cards and put out more comic books. Because again, just because there was like 5% of my sale, so I shouldn't take it more than, it was too much space on my table was dedicated to cards on day 2 or day 1. So I reduced it, put out more comic books, which worked. I sold more comics. I sold a lot of, again, a lot of Wolverine on day 2. It was good. So, so I think, from a just overall, market impression, between cards and comics right now, I'd say that, because I'm actively buying, on the buying side, I'd say 2 things. One is, on sports cards, the things I'm looking to buy are not really cheap right now. And I think that is interesting, because, the doom and gloom people are out there saying like, it's so bad, but, the stuff I'm looking to buy, the Hall of Fame stuff, the rookies, the vintage, is just not cheap. It may not be at peak anymore, but it's definitely not at all-time lows or 2018 lows. So, so I'm still, trying to still buy my Maze and Aaron cards to finish those sets, and they're not coming out very often. And if they come out, they still sell pretty high. I mean, I saw 61 Maze bring like $1,700 as an 8. That's a lot. I paid, I think $400 for mine in 2018. So that's 4 times what I paid for 4 years ago. So it shows you like there's a lot of stuff still pretty high, and it's still bringing good money. Comic books, very different. So, what I'll tell you is that, I made some good cash at the show. And so that night, on Sunday night when I came home, I went on Whatnot, because I thought maybe there was some people doing their $50,000 Whatnot giveaway stuff. I thought maybe they'd be on there. I don't know. I just wanted to see if anyone was on there selling their $50,000 worth of inventory yet. And I was just kind of like poking around. I've never bought a single thing on Whatnot since I joined the app a couple months ago. In fact, I don't even know how to buy anything. Like, I had to figure it all out. But I got on one channel that was selling really nice comic books. And, I've heard all the horror stories. In fact, the dealers at the show were talking about Whatnot as being a terrible app to sell on. They just, were saying these books were going so cheap. And so I thought, well, okay, if I can't find somebody doing their $50,000 thing, I would just see if I could find some good comic books. And then I did. And so I started watching them. And what was happening was, at first I couldn't keep up because the things were selling so fast. I couldn't get in there and do the comps before the sell would happen. And so I kept looking back at past sales and seeing like, hey, things are bringing like, between 50 and 80% of eBay. So they were bringing pretty good value. Like, I was like, wow, these are pretty good prices. So I had some extra cash from the show. So I started buying on this one guy's channel, is Blue Chip Comics. Good dudes. Like, they were very fun. And I just started buying, and man, I got some really, really nice comics at some really good deals. between 50% and 80% of eBay comps. And I bought like first X-23, first Doctor Strange solo book. I mean, just some keys I've been looking for that I like just in general, and a lot of issues just to put in the back issue bin at my for the next Comicon. So I was able to rebuild some inventory at pretty good discounts. And if the market goes down even further on some of those books, I'm not in them at full price. So it's the best of both worlds. So it was good. Now, if the dealers that were selling, they were complaining on some books that sold too cheap, but in general, they seemed pretty happy with their sales. So it didn't seem like a horrible situation for those guys. But I've seen other people have other reactions and other thoughts about whatnot. But that was my first sales with them, and I thought it went okay. I don't have my books yet, so I'm going to see when they arrive. I've won a couple prizes by being on Whatnot with these guys, so I'll see what those are if I get them, and I'll give you guys an update. But it was a good experience. I'm not going to sit here and say like, because I've said a few things about Whatnot. The biggest things I don't like about Whatnot are how they promote themselves. I don't like how they are just throwing money around to the influencers and people at shows to just. I mean, the New York City Comicon thing was just kind of silly, and how they're just kind of like making this all about money. I mean, I know they're trying to promote their app, but they could do it in different ways, and I feel like they could do it by maybe, giving collectors money, like discounts, coupons, things that make the collector want to go on their app and buy stuff instead of giving them money all to the influencers. I don't get their strategy, so I just don't understand it. I think it's kind of a weird way of going about this, but just me, But using the app and going out there and actually basically spending some good hard fought money, Comic-Con money on there, and I was like, wow, it was a good experience. So I can't complain about it, but it just shows that the stuff I like for comic books is able to be purchased at severe discount, even on eBay in some cases, whereas my card stuff I want can't. So I do think the comic book market is softer than the sports card market right now. And that's just my general take, that I can't sell an ASM 300 at 80% of eBay comps at a major comic book show. I think if I had, let's say a PSA 10 89 Upper Deck Griffey at 80% of last eBay comp, it would be sold at a sports card show pretty quickly. So I think the two markets are not right now pricing, in terms of price and sales, are not really tracking together, other than just things are down. But in terms of just how people are buying and selling right now, in comic book world, things are still selling at severe discounts in a lot of cases for non-rare stuff. Again, that 20% of stuff that's holding value or going up is, a very small segment of that market. Whereas in cards, there's, I think, a bigger section of that market is holding steady or growing. So I just think the card market's a little stronger right now than the comic book market. Now, but there's still a lot of people buying and selling. So it's not like, again, like when I was on Carlos's show, the general vibe is this: if you are priced appropriately and you have good material, you'll still sell. And I went to Comicon in a down market. I expected to sell, about $1,000, and I sold about 5 times what I thought I would sell. And that, I was very negative going in. I thought my inventory, which was down, wouldn't be popular. That I had too many graded books, too many $200 or $300 books, for $500 books, and and they just wouldn't move. And I was right in some cases, but I did move some big books. So again, I was wrong. It was strong, good sales day 1, day 2. was a lot weaker, but hey, it's an average of both days. And that's the thing, is like, if I had 2 day 1s, or day 2, sorry, if I had the same sales day 2 as I had, or same sales on day 2 on day 1, then I would have had a much different take. But I had a great day 1, and it really made the whole show on day 2 kind of a, whatever happened that day, I didn't care. I already had a good show on day 1. So it just I think right now everyone's got to just kind of look at their own inventory, look at what they're selling, and just react to the market, because it changes so quickly. You have to really prepare each show as its own thing. I'd say, if I would recommend anything to anyone who's going to shows now, is look at the inventory, look at what's being sold that's hot, price appropriately, meaning that if something is selling really hot, you may be able to get full comp. If you got really cold stuff, then you're going to have to price it down severely. Even if you're at 80% of eBay, you may have to go 75 or 60 to really move it. If you really want to move it, if you just want to hold on to it, price it at comp and don't drop. But at 80% of eBay, you're probably going to move some stuff and get out of it and move on to other stuff. That's what I'd recommend. If you're really looking just to move some inventory and reinvest, I think right now, some of the slower moving stuff, you got to get it down to, that 80% or below on some of the stuff, or it's not going to move. And it's both in cards and comics. But I think right now there's a lot more stuff in cards. Like right now, I wouldn't discount a lot of my vintage to 80%. I just wouldn't, because I think it can sell closer to 100. Comic books, even Silver Surfer 3 and 4, aren't bringing what it was 5 months ago, and I still had to come down a little bit to make the sale happen. So it is what it is, So that's it. That's what my thoughts. I appreciate, everyone. If you can go over and again check out Carlos's channel. I mean, he's a much bigger channel than I am, so I'm sure a lot of you guys have. But I did appreciate him having me on, and hopefully to be on some more shows, other channels, and try to just keep having fun in the hobby. I know a lot of you folks aren't comic folks, so hopefully you stay tuned as I try to relate both cards and comics together in terms of market. And yeah, I think, in closing, I'd say that, it was a fun time. I sold a lot of stuff that I wanted to, and reinvested already, and I'm ready to go again. And I think the market is, it is what it is, but if you do it right, you can still have great days like I did. And a lot of the dealers that were with me had great days as well. So not gloom and doom, just got to readjust your prices and go for it. So that's it, guys. Hope you had a good day, and I'll talk to you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye.